Well, mung bean egg is all over the internet, and I've been playing around with it too. I use it in so many things now. And it's easy, people have found, to make a mung bean omelet. That is super, super simple. But getting that texture for a scrambled egg has been more of a challenge. I think I'm really close. So I want to share my journey with you and where I am, and to show you how easy it is to make a healthy version of a vegan egg out of mung bean dal. I'm going to start out with a cup of mung bean dal, and it's a 3-to-1 ratio of mung bean dal to water. That's what I've been using, and I think it works well. So I'm going to put it into my blender. I've not been soaking it. You can soak it if you want and drain it. I haven't found that I needed to do that. I like to simplify my life, and I'm going to add 3 cups of water. And that's all I'm going to add right now, and we're going to blend it. Okay, so that's the first step, but this is the whole mung bean. It contains all the starch, all the fiber, all of that, but that very starch that it contains can sort of obstruct with a silky texture we're looking for. So we're actually going to run this through a nut milk bag and remove the pulp before we proceed to the next step. So I've got a nut milk bag. I prefer these nylon bags to cloth ones. They just work better. And I'm going to pour the milk in here, and there's some sludge at the bottom of the blender. All right, and now I'm going to squeeze this. Now the pulp, which is called okara, or in Japanese, that's what we call soybean pulp anyway. The pulp of the mung bean can be used for various dishes. For example, I have a recipe for, okay, that you don't want to do. So try not to squirt all over your kitchen, okay? So that's what happens when you yak and squeeze at the same time. But the pulp can be used to make things like meatloaf, vegan meatloaf, crab cakes, all sorts of things. This makes quite a bit of egg that works for both omelets and scramble. So if you do soak the mung bean, you do get a slightly finer pulp, but I don't find that it's necessary. So you end up with about this much, maybe half a cup, 3/4 of a cup, 2/3 of a cup of pulp left. And you can freeze it if you're not going to use it right away. And then you can bake with it, put it into bread. That would be another use for it. There's all sorts of things. All right, I'm going to set that aside. The egg is going back into the blender, and I'm going to add a couple tablespoons of nutritional yeast, which will give it some flavor. I'm not going to add any black salt at this point. What I am going to add, which will give it that bounce and that texture that, you know, how when you cook scrambled eggs, if you still remember, they have a little bit of bounce. They're not gummy, they're not floury, but they do congeal and they have a little bit of bounce. And we're going to be able to give that by adding konjac powder. Now, what is konjac powder? Konjac is the ground up root of the konjac plant. And it's something that's been used in Japan for, oh gosh, centuries. We eat something called konnyaku. That's the Japanese word for konjac, konnyaku. And it's used in shirataki noodles. Those are also made out of konjac or konjac. And so it's an all natural, just a ground up root. And we're going to add about 2 teaspoons. You can add up to 3. If you wanted a slightly firmer egg, you can add a tablespoon of konjac powder. And now we're going to add a little bit of olive oil to this. You can add olive oil, you can add avocado oil. Avocado oil is definitely more neutral in flavor, but I'm just so in love with the olive oil from my olive trees that I'm going to add a little bit of this. Now, mung beans have no fat, and so you want to add a little bit, maybe 3 tablespoons or so. You can add more if you'd like a richer egg, but just to give it a little bit more of that richness, you want to add a little bit of oil. Now I'm going to puree this one more time. Now you'll notice I didn't add any salt to this. So you can go ahead and add salt to the mixture if you like, or what I do at the very end is I sprinkle it with a little bit of black salt, which has sulfur in it. I'll show you what that looks like in a minute as we cook this, which will give it that eggy flavor. If you don't care about the eggy flavor, you just want the texture, you can just use plain old salt. All right, and the egg is ready. Now you want to pour this into a jar, and before you use it each time, you want to make sure you shake it up really, really well, because it does separate. It does not stay emulsified, because there is no emulsifier or gum in it to hold it together. I highly recommend a nonstick pan. I don't happen to have a nonstick pan that is stovetop size. I have a giant one, but I don't have one that's very small. So we're just going to get my pan. To make your pan more or less nonstick, get it hot first. After you get it hot, add the oil, the vegan butter, which works better than just oil, or a nonstick spray. Okay, hopefully that will prevent this from sticking too much. So I'm going to turn the heat down. You want to cook it a little bit slowly. Get that hot, and I'm going to pour this in. And I want to hear that sizzle so it doesn't stick. There we go. Okay, we're just going to let it sit there for a few minutes and solidify a little bit, and then we'll start pushing it around. Now you can add a little bit more nutritional yeast. It'll be eggier in color that way. You could add a little bit of turmeric as well for the color. Get yourself a nonstick pan for this. I gotta get one too. I know, it's unbelievable I don't have one. Okay, now I'm gonna add the black salt. And heat kills that eggy flavor. It's also very salty, so make sure you don't oversalt it. And give it one last stir. And this, as it cools, solidifies into a more eggy texture. So don't bite into it immediately. Let it sit for a couple of minutes, and it will begin to solidify. All right, let me check out my mung bean dal scrambled eggs. Sprinkled a little bit of black salt for that eggy flavor. Remember, just let it cool for a few minutes before you eat it, because it's during that cooling process that it comes together and solidifies and begins to have that bouncy, firmer texture. It's like soft scrambled eggs. I mean, I could serve this on toast, add some vegetables to it, and be a fantastic breakfast. And the really hot part that I just ate is still on its way to solidifying. So give it a couple minutes, don't serve it piping hot, let it cool off a little bit. Look at that, see? It's like egg right there. It's firm. Yummy, and so easy to make. All right, guys, try it, tell me what you think of it, and we'll see you again next time on The Vegan Good Life with Miyoko.